We have lots to talk about in today's video, including the latest news and rumors around the NHL. Today's rumor mill focusing on teams like the Ottawa Senators, Edmonton Oilers, and the New York Islanders. Plus, we got lots of injury updates around the league, including some more that happened today. Phil Broberg, Sammy Ersson, Tyler Seguin, and a whole bunch of others. We'll discuss the latest injury updates there. Plus, the NHLPA has launched a new initiative, creating a committee to focus on CTE and its effects long-term with players. We'll discuss all that, plus news from the waiver wire, coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to talk about here in today's video. Let's start first with the news from the NHL waiver wire. A little bit of a surprising move here, but the Vancouver Canucks have placed centerman Nils Aman on waivers. So there's a possibility he may get picked up. That wouldn't be shocking. I mean, he is a centerman, which are a little bit harder to find. Somebody who can play in the bottom six, play more of a special teams role and defensively and all that. So, hard to say 100% what happens with him. He can be, maybe he clears, but I would not rule out the possibility that he does get picked up. So we will find out tomorrow. I know Elliotte Friedman on headlines tonight was talking about the fact that the Canucks are believed to be looking to get maybe some opportunities to some of their young players. Plus, it's expected, and hopefully it's accurate, that Dakota Joshua is close to returning. So they need to create a roster spot for Joshua. So I'm sure his return from the offseason stuff he was dealing with will affect this. But like he also mentions, like guys like Atu Ratu and Jonathan Lekarimäki been playing very well in the American Hockey League, and the Canucks seem to be pretty open to give them some opportunities here in the near future. So certainly be interesting to see what happens here with the waivers, if there's a claim, and how the Canucks do proceed from there. Like I said, lots of updates on the injury front. A couple of that actually went down here today. We saw the Flyers and Bruins have an afternoon game. Goaltender Sammy Ersson for the Flyers. Originally, it was weird because he ended up with a skate blade issue. His blade came off after making a save, but then later, not long after getting it fixed, he was talking to the team trainer again and ended up leaving the game with an injury. It's believed that he's probably looking at about a week recovery from whatever exactly it was that he was dealing with. So the Flyers are certainly going to be in a situation, of course, where they can keep Kolosov up. They'll have to obviously bring Fedotov back into the mix here because he's been the one that's been sitting out lately as they give Kolosov and Ersson a chance to run with things. But certainly an unfortunate set of circumstances there for the Philadelphia netminder. We also saw Blues defenseman who's been off to a hot start, Philip Broberg, in the St. Louis-Toronto game, leave the game with an injury, and they just confirmed a short time ago that he will not be back tonight. He got tied up with Mitch Marner. Went down awkwardly. I'm not sure if it's an ankle or a knee, but it's certainly something in the lower half of the leg is what it looks like. And it looked like it had the potential to be serious, but we'll have to wait further word once the St. Louis Blues complete their evaluations of Broberg and kind of announce what he's dealing with. But that's a big blow. He's been a terrific addition. I know the offer sheet, most of us all thought it was going to be overpayment, but long-term could be a benefit if he continues to improve and develop. And he's been really, really good. It hasn't been overpaid at all so far. But now this injury will cause a major, hole in the back end because he's been so good for them. So hopefully the prognosis on Broberg is not out too long, but certainly not a good scene there. The Islanders made a few announcements today as well. Matthew Barzal, who we know had gone home back to Long Island to be evaluated after they left the team on the road trip, and they announced he's about 4 to 6 weeks. And defenseman Adam Pelech also out 4 to 6 weeks as well. We also know Mike Riley and Alexander Romanov are both out as well. They're considered day-to-day. So the Islanders are kind of depleted on the blue line with 3 regulars now not in the lineup. So we're going to talk about the Islanders here a little bit more in the rumor section when we get there, but certainly fair to say that they're probably looking for help. Dallas today confirmed that Tyler Seguin, because they're over in a global series in Finland with the Florida Panthers, and the Panthers did win again today. So the Panthers beat Dallas both games over there. So the hometown boy Barkov of the Panthers gets to be the hometown hero, you could say. But certainly, like I said, the Stars had lots of Finn players there as well, but Barkov was the main star from the exact town that they were at in Finland. But Tyler Seguin was not in the lineup today, and he is out and considered day-to-day, so he could be out a little bit as well. A couple updates with the Rangers. They did reassign Matt Rempe back to the minors again. They did activate Jimmy Vesey and were able to get themselves out of being in long-term injured reserve. So they now actually have cap space available. That's not LTIR. Rempe's in the minors. Vesey fully activated. The Anaheim Ducks also had demoted defenseman Tristan Luneau down to the American Hockey League as well. And Washington, already without Matt Roy, had then lost Jacob Chychrun. Chychrun's out with injury as well. Has been officially placed on IR today. Once you're on IR, you have to be out at least a minimum of 7 days. So we'll see. Obviously, the Capitals had another big win today against the Blue Jackets. They had a 5-0 lead in the first period on it was under 10 shots. It was crazy. Tarasov was left in to kind of handle it and to kind of deal with it, but the Capitals blew out the Blue Jackets earlier, and even though their top two defensive acquisitions have not been in the lineup, they are doing just fine. So we'll see where things go for Washington. They're going to be an interesting team to see how they can keep that up or not, or how things move along. Another big story that came today from Frank Saravalli, dailyfaceoff.com. The NHLPA had a big announcement at an event. So the Marty Walsh, a new executive director, has been on the job now for, what has it been, close to a year, I think it was. They are obviously got a lot of changes, and a lot of things have kind of, the whole vision of the PA and everything kind of took a new direction when he took over. So they've announced the formation of the union's first ever CTE Advisory Committee. Now, of course, CTE, is, they believe lots of studies out there that causes lots of other, diseases that, obviously from different brain damage, from concussions and all that. And we've heard Gary Bettman over and over and over again deny that there is substantial research out there to confirm the effects of CTE, even though several NHL players, especially a lot of the guys that were known fighters, have had their brains donated to science to be studied after their passing, that their families went through, and CTE was very present. And all these, there's so many cases, it's crazy. So it's nice to see them putting a little bit more of a focus on it and making sure that the players are more aware of all this stuff. But certainly, basically, the committee will be a huge step forward in publicly recognizing the fact that, like I said, it's been established for years with multiple medical studies, but the NHL repeatedly has denied the fact of the long-term effects of CTE and how it affects the brain. So certainly, like I said, in the past, back in the 80s, players probably played through concussions all the time because we didn't have the research and the studies on it like we do today. So to know that what the effects are, it just makes everybody that much more cautious of it. It's not just about playing hockey. You have to be cautious of your own personal well-being, your family, and everything else. So essentially, like I said, with all those medical studies out there to show that they've learned how important the subject was here. It's nice to see this form. Marty Walsh made a comment saying that when he was going through the process of taking this job, what he had heard from the players, that this was a very important subject to them, and they wanted to see this type of thing happen. And apparently this committee's been in the works for quite some time. It's been just kind of held secretly, so to speak, and it just became public and announced here now. So it's going to be comprised of 10 active NHL players for the time being. Eventually, they want to expand it so that every NHL team has their own team representative. But for right now, they're going to start with 10. They're going to meet multiple times per year. They'll probably review a lot of stuff and obviously do a lot of promotion about, just more of an education piece, I'm sure. And they'll probably, I would imagine during some of these meetings, they'll probably have guest speakers and review studies and just kind of create more of an awareness around it. That's really the main thing you can do around it, to make sure they have all the information at their fingertips so they completely understand. Now, on the rumor mill, we're going to look at 3 teams. We're going to look at Ottawa, Edmonton, and the New York Islanders. And they're all kind of in the same boat here based on what the rumor mill is they're all kind of looking for defensemen. I know Elliot Friedman on headlines tonight on Hockey Night in Canada was talking about the fact, like I just alluded to here a few minutes ago, that the New York Islanders are now decimated with injuries on the blue line. So it's believed that the Islanders are kind of sniffing around to see what's out there for defensive help. Now, of course, like a lot of teams, like I said, Romanov and Riley, they're not expected to be out for too long. They're more of a day-to-day situation. They may be out, maybe a week. It's maybe less. It's hard to say, but it's not going to be super long time. Whereas Adam Pelech is going to be an extended time, upwards of 6 weeks. So certainly, no guarantee that they make a move, but having that many players out at that position does make it really, really tough. Now, the Islanders are in a unique spot here as well because they haven't had a good start to the season. They've had a lot of trouble scoring. They've been shut out numerous times. I know Patrick Waugh seems to be frustrated. There's a lot of rumors about Waugh and Lou not being on the same page. They've publicly denied that. Some reporters like Dave Pagnotta has pushed the fact that he does think that, based on his sources, that there is a little bit of a case of them not seeing eye to eye. They are both passionate hockey people and definitely both want to win. I don't deny that, and I'm sure that's the case. But when you're not seeing and agreeing on the personnel decisions and roster decisions, it can be tough for sure. But I mean, like I said, this team has been clamoring for Lou to make moves for a long time. So at the same time, I would think the fact that they put Barzal on long-term injury reserve and everything that they've kind of done here, I can see them going after a D, but I don't think it's going to be anybody that's going to wow you. It's going to be more of a depth move if they do it, and it's going to be a short-term contract and something that's not going to be super big name or anything like that. But we'll see. Like, same thing goes for Ottawa and Edmonton, although the names linked to them are a bit bigger. I know for Ottawa, there's an Athletic article from Julian McKenzie, who is the new beat writer for the Sens after taking over from Ian Mendez. Of course, Mendez now working directly for the Senators in their communications department. Mentions in his article 5 defensemen that would make sense to some degree for them to take a look at. Of course, they've had the Artem Zub injury. He's been out for a couple of weeks now, and we don't really have a definitive timeline because he's dealing with a concussion on how long he's going to be out. Based on the initial reports, it sounds like, sometime. I know they have another 2 or 3 games over the next week. It's quite possible he could return over that stretch. But, they're at a point where if they get one more injury, then they're going to be in a situation they don't want to be, and it's going to really challenge their depth. With the moves they've made, I mean, the players they brought in, like Nick Jensen's, fit well, and he's done well, but at the same time, like, they're just not as deep as they'd like to be. They got 2 kids playing on the third pair with Clevin and Bernard Docker, and they are doing fine. But you could use one more experienced defenseman in case of injury. And the article mentions Cam Fowler from the Anaheim Ducks as being an option. The only issue is, I think Fowler, there's lots to like about his game, and I think he would be a great veteran there, but at the same time, he's making $6.5 million. If Anaheim is willing to eat some money, maybe, but they would definitely have to, and I'm not sure what the asking price would be. We also know Fowler has some trade protection, and it's been rumored that he's willing to work with the Ducks and has been for expanding the list of teams that he's willing to go to. How he feels about coming to Canada, going to Ottawa, I don't know. But Fowler's a name that to some degree makes sense, but I think they'd have to move out a bigger contract to do it, and I'm not sure that it would make perfect sense. He also mentions a guy like Scott Perunovich in St. Louis, who that might not even have to be a trade. There's some speculation he could end up on waivers. He mentions Justin Hall in Detroit and John Merrill from Minnesota. They're both, for me, that would be a hard no. I don't see a fit there at all. In all honesty, I think what you need somebody who can play, ideally who's a good serviceable third pair, but if need be, could play second pair. Because right now they got Hamonic playing in the top 4, but he started the season much better playing third pair, and he's done better than expected, but at the same time he's still, you can tell there's the odd time where he's just out of place, right? So we'll see what happens there, but certainly, I think if they're going to make a move, it's going to be, a right shot. It's not going to be a left shot, and I think it's going to be somebody that is on a shorter term contract and not overly expensive. So like I know like in Toronto, like they're looking to move or flip Matt Benning, which we talked about yesterday, and Friedman did mention that again on headlines. Like somebody like that would be, and I'm not sure that he's perfect for Ottawa or that we'd see the Sens at least make a deal, but something along those lines I think would be what they would end up doing. Fowler's an interesting name, but I think if that's something that they were going to do, it'd be maybe for the offseason, like I said. But would he go to a Canadian team? We don't know. So we'll see on there. And in Edmonton, Elliotte Friedman, not from the headline segment, but made an appearance on Bob Stauffer's Oilers Now program, talking about the fact that the Oilers are definitely looking to add on the blue line, and mentions a few names as well, including Cam Fowler, because ideally they want to find a partner for Darnell Nurse in the second pair. A couple of names that he brings up are both in Chicago. Besides Fowler, he mentions Connor Murphy and Seth Jones. Now, but he does acknowledge with Seth Jones that as much as it's an interesting name, that from a cap perspective, because of the big cap hit, it would be extremely challenging. Now, I know Chicago would have to retain money. I'm not sure right off the top of my head what Chicago has for salary retention spots, because you can only have 3. I know I don't know what they have available there, so they very well may have a spot, but they'd have to eat a decent amount of money and take back a contract from Edmonton that maybe Edmonton, is okay moving. It'd be very, very complicated, to say the least. Connor Murphy would be a lot more affordable. Now, of course, we know Stan Bowman, the current Oilers general manager, he's the one that signed Seth Jones and made that deal. And same thing with the Murphy. Obviously, Murphy current contract, I believe, was done after he left, but still, he's still somebody that he's familiar with and had dealt with before. So he knows both those guys very well and what they can bring. They would both probably be decent pickups. Obviously, from a money perspective, I said Jones would be very, very complicated. Fowler would have to play his weak side if he came in, because obviously he's normally plays the other side, but obviously they'd all complement Nurse in some fashion, but at the same time, again, with Fowler, would he go to a Canadian club? We don't know. And Jones and Murphy, I think Murphy would make more sense, but obviously Jones is the more interesting name here that Friedman's talking about. Certainly brings a level of experience, a high draft pick, but when he first went to Chicago, that contract looked horrible. It definitely probably looks a little better now because of the cap going up and stuff. But yeah, he's definitely an overpaid defenseman. And, could he be a good fit? I mean, he's right shot. He's got good size, good mobility. Maybe. Hard to say, but certainly an interesting case here for the Oilers. Let me know your thoughts on which defenseman would go well with all of these teams, because like I said, all 3 teams are rumored to be looking for a D-man right now on the trade market. But as Friedman said, it's this time of year we don't see a lot of moves, but there's lots of talk, and he's curious to see how much of this talk leads to deals, hopefully in the short term. So let me know your thoughts on all today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.